The chair now recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina.
Madam Speaker, my amendment would prohibit funding for policies that advance the Biden administration's radical DEI agenda, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Specifically, my amendment would prohibit the use of funds for the Department of Energy's Office of Scientific Workforce Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This office mission is to promote diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplaces. Now, even science must bow to equity and inclusion. Science should be rooted in fact and research, not wokeism. We've seen what happens when DOE prioritizes diversity and inclusion over all else. It results in hiring non-binary nuclear officials like Sam Brinton, who uses they, them pronouns to address his cohorts. It's time to be serious. We cannot waste taxpayers' dollars funding an Office of Science whose sole purpose is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion over science. I urge my colleagues to support my amendments. I reserve the balance of my time.
Any member seeking recognition in opposition? For what purpose does gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Yes, Madam Chair, I rise in strong opposition to this amendment.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
As I understand it, this amendment prohibits the use of funds for the Department of Energy's Office of Science, their science offices of scientific workforce, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This bill already includes harmful riders that show Republicans are not interested in bills that can gain bipartisan support and become law. So during our full committee markup, I remember it well, Republicans added a provision that prohibits funds for any diversity, equity, and inclusion office, program, or training. The underlying bill already includes Section 606, and I quote, that prohibits funds related to advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities and related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. In addition, Section 605 of the underlying bill prohibits any activities related to critical race theory, put those three words in quotes, that as we heard during the markups when I asked the question, none of my Republican colleagues could even define. How many, and I don't see a definition in your presentation here today, how many times do the individuals on the other side of the aisle need to emphasize that they do not like the words diversity, equity, and inclusion? I know when we were educated, we were always taught about e pluribus unum, one of many. And that's what makes our nation great, that we aren't just one widget, that in fact our common experience is our shared heritages for wherever they might be from. It makes us a more interesting place, and it also connects us to the broader world beyond our shores. I really do not understand why these provisions are necessary on an energy and water bill, and I would hope that my colleagues can stop targeting those who may be different from themselves, or they might think they are, and embrace acceptance, or at least tolerance, of others. And I urge my colleagues to reject this amendment. I yield back my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman is now recognized.
Madam Speaker, I think my good friends on the left don't realize the cost of what DEI is borne by the businesses in this country. And now more than ever, when they're paying double and triple for gas, they're having supply chain shortages. They've got interest rates that are 40-year high. They've got inflation that we've never seen the likes of. We've seen what DEI does in the military. The military is down 25 to 30%. If you want a definition, define for me what pronouns they and them. If you're referring to your fellow workers, they and them, does that make sense? No, that's the stupidest, craziest idea to even entertain. People are trying to put food on the table. People are trying to protect their loved ones. And you're really promoting this with a price tag? Y'all ought to be ashamed of yourself for doing this. at a time when America is struggling as never before. It's got a price tag to it, and to even have to discuss this is really unbelievable in today's world. I yield back to balance my time.
The gentleman yields. The question now is on the amendment.